Thinker Television, brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter, Peterson Toyota and Toyota Trucks, moving forward. Coldwell Banker, every day until it's sold. St. Croix Rod, best rods on earth. Evinrude, spend more time on the water. Good morning. Welcome to Fishful Thinker. We appreciate you joining us. I'm the host, Chad LaChance. Joining us in the boat today, Mr. Chad Phillips. We got two Chads in the boat today. Hopefully it won't be too confusing. Right off the bat, I want to apologize for one thing. You're going to notice my voice is hoarse, but I'm willing to come out and fish with a hoarse voice for fall brown trout fishing. We're on North Delaney. It's a trophy trout fishery here in Colorado. We're bass fishing for trout. Mr. Phillips here, basically one of the guys that got me involved with tournament bass fishing 20 years ago for an article that he did with the late Charlie Myers. My wife picked it up and read it, brought it home, got me into tournament fishing, and lo and behold, so now we've got him in the boat. Yeah. We're bass fishing for trout, jerk baits, lipless crankbaits, maybe some tube jigs, maybe even some swim baits. Fall brown trout, this is the time of year to get after them with bass tactics. Should be fun. What do you think?
I think it's a good time.
All right, so we're gonna get after them, see if we can catch a few of these fish. Hopefully we'll find them right off the bat. It's an afternoon bite. This should be fun. Okay, so we have made contact with the enemy. And what we're working here, we're working a little jerkbait. We got really clear water, and there is an absolute textbook brown trout right there. And you can see that jerkbait buried in his face. Got him on the paws. We'll let him burn out for a second here. Look at the colors on that thing. Holy smokes. Now that's a pretty trout right there. Now, as with all the other trout, first thing we do is get these hooks out because we don't ever want to deal with hooks. And again, I do want to apologize for being a little bit under the weather, guys. My voice isn't quite what it ought to be. Here we go, let me hold this guy. And so I'm talking real quiet, but this is exactly what we came to North Delaney to show you right here. This is an absolute textbook hook-jawed brown trout, if I can get him unhooked here, and we're going to put him back relatively quick. But that's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful brown. You see the jaw, look at all the teeth in that thing. You see he's got the big giant teeth all over him. We're going to get him back quick because he's spawning. Now, I'd love to tell you I figured that all out on my own, but I didn't, because right over here on the bank, right here, you're gonna see a gentleman that's fishing right there, and that's the graphic artist for us here at Fishful Thinker. His name is Billy Babb. We just come pulling up in the boat. He says, oh, you gotta pause the jerkbait more. They're chasing out of their territory. If you pause it, they'll bite it. Sure enough, that thing bit it on the dead pause right there. So thanks to Billy, sometimes it helps to get those little tidbits, but those are the kinds of observations that make a difference in any given day. You know, I've been working the bait real fast, not getting bites. Within a few casts of slowing it down and pausing it, boom, got her done. So that's, we'll keep after it, see if we can make it work some more. Boom, all right. Now you see why we're bass fishing for trout. Fish. Sometimes when you're trout fishing, it pays to bring a bass guy with you. Now, fishing brown trout in the fall is a lot like bass fishing in a lot of ways. You're triggering fish to bite. We're not feeding these fish at all. We're getting these fish to bite on territorialness, hence the pause on the jerkbait. And we'll see if my netting skills are terrible, Mr. Phillips, so we're gonna see if we can handle it here.
I think you'll be able to get it.
We're gonna try, we can get him, and we got him. Nicely done. Nice, give me some right there. There you go. Now another jerkbait fish right off the bat. Now, we're always careful with trout. Always have my pliers handy. Always have your pliers handy if you're got treble hooks and trout, because you're gonna need them. So you might as well just keep them handy so that you can use them. Another beautiful brown. If you look right there, another absolutely gorgeous. Look at the spawning colors. Look at the teeth on this thing. Look at the teeth in there. That's a predator right there, and that's why you fish them like bass. And we're gonna put him back because he's trying to spawn. We'll put him back over here. He's at least staged up. There you go, buddy. Ooh, there he goes. Outstanding, Mr. Phillips. That's why you bring a bass fisherman along. You know, getting fish to bite out of reaction, or getting fish to bite out of aggression, or getting fish to bite because they're territorial, those are all things that bass guys are very good at. Fall brown trout fishing is a prime time to do that because these fish are very aggressive, very territorial. Great time for the big baits, and it's a really fun way to catch them. So it might sound stupid to say you're bass fishing for trout, but it's good fun. So they're messing with me. Some of the keys about fishing for browns in the fall. First of all, brown trout are fall spawners. We're not fishing for fish that are on spawning beds. We're fishing for fish that are staging to spawn, and they're aggressive and they're territorial. Chad and I are both working jerk baits right now, working just a couple of little, really completely different size and color even jerk baits. It's not so much about the bait, it's about leaving the bait in their strike zone to get them to bite it. So fish are just basically trying to evacuate your bait. They don't want it in their area is what it comes down to, more than they're actually trying to eat it. So that's a key concept to keep in mind for fishing territorial fish. One of the things bass fishermen are known for is beating the banks, and you're gonna see all through this show, we're gonna beat the banks a lot. Trout are pelagic and they roam, there's no question. But this time of year, these browns are really staging to spawn. They're thinking about spawning. So they're staying shallow. So the main lake basin isn't necessarily the deal. We're gonna be working around the banks. It's very much a bass fishing way to fish, and that's kind of our joke of bass fishing for trout. But the reality of the situation is anybody that's used to working bass patterns could potentially be very good at this. As with any other jerkbait deal, it's all on the cadence of the bait and the pause of the bait, and we'll continue to refine that to work our pattern out as to whether we're working the bait real hard and aggressive or slow or whatever. But beating the banks with a jerkbait is very much a bassy way to fish. So a key part to our jerkbait fishing here is the system that I've used on Fishful Thinker, or I've been using it since I was a kid, but as far as Fishful Thinker goes, we've used this system forever on TV since we started. And the deal is this, it's the braided line and parts of really crisp and erratic action. But the thing about that braided line is it will snag the treble hooks because it's very, very limber for one, and for two, it's very visible to the fish. So what we do, take a little 100% fluorocarbon right here, and I'm putting a little leader on. I'll put a leader on that's maybe 18 inches to 2 feet long, and I'm gonna join it with a double uni knot, which is what I'm tying right now. That leader is stiffer material than the braided line. It's actually 12-pound fluorocarbon, which is a lot heavier than you would think of for trout fishing. But the reason I'm using such heavy fluorocarbon is it keeps my bait from fouling as much when I cast, so the leader doesn't catch the hooks on the treble. So that's really what it comes down to. So the first step is to tie this uni knot, which I just tied right there, and then we'll cut it off and we'll tie the jerkbait on from there, and you'll see the whole system. Since we fish so much braided line and leader system, I carry basically all these are fluorocarbons from 4 to 20 pound test. I could tie a leader from any of those pound tests onto my 10 or 15 pound braided line that I have here, and basically tailor my terminal end of my package to whatever bait I need. So if I put a little small jerk bait on there, or a little small jig of some sort, I would put a very small leader on, maybe 4, 6, or 8 pound. With the bigger baits and the bigger trebles, I'm gonna throw a heavier leader on there, and it's really about tailoring the leader to the bait. And as with all episodes of Fishful Thinker, choose your lure, then choose your line, then choose your rod, and then your reel to go with that. Same thing, the leader's just kind of on the micro end of that system, but you gotta put the whole package together. First of all, you're gonna see some folks on the bank right here behind us. Normally, I am not a proponent of getting this close to people on the banks in your boat. Those happen to be friends of ours. That's Billy Babb and his dad right there. Billy Babb's a graphic artist for Fishful Thinker, like I said. He makes sure that everything from our truck to our printing materials look good, websites and everything else. So we kind of hooked up with those guys up here. So in Colorado or anywhere else, I'm not an advocate of horning in on people on the bank, but the key and why I bring that up is that these fish are as accessible, perhaps even more accessible from the bank. And since they are running the banks, whether you're fishing any of the potholes in Wyoming or here, the high prairie lakes here, as long as you have access to the banks, you certainly don't need a boat of any sort to go do it. I happen to have a bass boat. I enjoy being in the bass boat. Chad, I know, enjoys being in the bass boat as well, so we brought it. But certainly this could very easily be accomplished from the bank, and again, maybe even better from the bank. Okay, so we're up in the windy spot and we're still working. It's been getting colder and nastier and windier and nastier and colder. And we've just been working and working and working on catching our fish. And the one thing about fall is they can be a little bit inconsistent. However, like we've been saying all along, the jerkbait deal, that's all it really takes is a little bit of activity, a little bit of patience, and you know you're going to catch some of them. Now this is just a nice average trout, not a huge fish for what we're doing, certainly smaller than the others we've caught, but another one that's kind of bleached out. We're going to go ahead and get him back real quick there. But switched it up, got the rainbow colored floating jerkbait, real shallow cover right here. Still sticking with the jerkbaits and still catching fish. So having fun with it. We'll stay after it and see if we can catch a few more of them. But the bottom line is, we always say you got to be observant as an angler. The suspending bait on the deeper stuff, the floating bait on the shallow stuff. Keep working different retrieves, getting her done. Woo! Chad, you're up.
Come on.
You can see we got some serious community water right here. These fly fishermen are catching fish right at their feet, and that should really be a sign. You know, we've said that several times. These various fly fishermen we've seen that are on the bank are catching fish right at their feet. The guy in the back of that boat also caught one right at his feet. So this is definitely an opportunity for bank fishermen to get out and get it done as well. Whether it be the rainbows that are following the browns or the browns themselves. But no boat, no problem. In fact, most of the bank guys we've seen have caught more fish than we have today. And I think it's probably because they have better control. They're fishing right tight to where they need to be. Whereas in the boat, your bait's not in your strike zone as long.
That's a nice fish.
That's a nice one too. Nice.
Oh, dang, that's a heavy fish.
So for those of you with a really good eye, trivia question, that's Caleb Van Wagner. You've seen him on Fishful Thinker before. Josie, they rowed us down the river one time. It's old home week here at the lake. It's funny how a whole bunch of spawning browns will get everybody out to fish. All right, this is a big one too, guys. Feels like it's a nice one. Man, you talk about getting a pattern dialed. Now, I'll tell you what, we know where they're sitting, we know what they'll bite. It's an absolute textbook, just like any bass fisherman would do. He's not as big as he looked. He looked really big. You got in there, Mr. Phillips?
Got it.
Coming in there, nice. Look at the colors
nice.
on this fish. Holy smokes, look at the colors on that one. Let me get down here and we'll get him unhooked right quick.
Wrapped up there.
Yeah, he's gonna be a little bit of a mess. He's kind of tangled up. So give me just a minute, folks, but this is a pretty one. All right, so we got this one unhooked here. We're gonna get him out of the net and I'll show him to you. Interesting, this one's only got one eye and it isn't for me. If you can see, it's an old injury right there. Just has one eye, but another, look, big scar in his belly too. This one might have had a run-in with a bird, but another beautiful brown on exactly the same pattern. We'll go ahead and get him put back. You know, we talk about developing patterns. It's a classic bass thing, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you gotta catch, if you can put a pattern together, you can catch lots of fish. That's all there is to it. And Chad would know that. You know, he and I have been tournament fishing for a very long time, him for a lot longer than I have. Pattern fishing is what it's all about. We know where they are, what they'll bite, how to retrieve it, and now it's just a matter of going along and clicking them off. And don't you wish your tournament days went like that?
Oh, it'd be nice to be able to find them stacked up like this.
Yeah, it's always good when you can find them dialed up. What do you think are some of the key things to coming up with a pattern day in and day out?
You know, it's just got to be time on the water.
You think?
It's got to be time on the water, and you know, quickly being able to evaluate the shoreline when you arrive at a lake like this. You know, here we have a predominant wind. Maybe that's playing a factor today where these fish are. We know we've got grass all around the side of the lake, so you know they're going to be relating to those different features like that. And turned on because the wind's on, I would say. Yeah, the wind I think is the deal. It's been getting colder all day, and I would agree with you 100%, Chad. The wind's probably as big a part of the deal as anything else. Is that we've got wind blowing hard on the bank right here. And I don't care if you're fishing for stripers or largemouth or trout. When the wind's blowing hard on the bank, that's going to be a reasonably good spot to try. And certainly it's definitely paid off for us here today. Let's see if we can catch another one. A good one.
Another big one right there now. Holy smokes, look at this thing. Chad, you gonna net that one for me? I'd appreciate it.
Oh man.
Holy smokes, look at this thing.
There's
another big old brown. Good Lord, folks.
Fast
I'm telling
and
you
furious.
what, we're like, I don't know how many fish in 5 minutes right here. Guys, this is another giant one. Beautiful fish. Again, we're gonna get them unhooked real quick. All right, there we go, got that one unhooked. Another monstrous brown, dude. I mean, does it get any better than that? We're gonna be quick about getting all these fish back, but that fish has gotta be 20 inches. There you go, buddy. Look at him go. Talk about pattern fishing. We're what, 5 minutes, just boom, boom, boom. Make the same angled cast, boom. They're just eating right now. They are flat chewing up that rainbow trout jerkbait. Gotta love that. Woo, baby. If you're a fan of Fishful Thinker, you know that we use jerkbaits to catch a variety of fish in a variety of conditions. But as with any other lure, not all jerkbaits are created equal. Basically, angler has a choice between a suspending jerkbait and a floating jerkbait, and on today's show, we used both. This floating jerkbait like this Rapala minnow right here is a great choice in very shallow water situations and oftentimes in rivers as well, because if I quit retrieving it, it will float back to the surface. Versus a suspending jerkbait like this Rapala X-Rap right here, when I stop retrieving the bait, it will stay at that level in the water column and give it a chance to generate strikes. Generally, if I want to pause a bait and let it sit there, I want a suspending bait, or if I'm fishing in deeper water, I like a suspending bait. For shallow water or a bait that I'm going to keep moving, a floating bait's a great choice. If you choose your jerkbait to match your conditions, you'll catch more fish.
You got to be sure that whenever you come up chasing these guys in the high country that you got your gear. The weather changes like it did today, we were able to just dig into the boxes and get our jackets.
Oh yeah, that ain't no lie. And that comes from living in the mountains. Now I know you spend a lot of time living up in Breckenridge and you know how fast the weather can change.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can look up one minute and see blue sky and the next minute you look up and it's dark and cloudy.
Well, what do you think? It's probably 20 degrees colder than it was when we got here?
Absolutely.
Maybe more?
With this northwest wind coming. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten chilly out here. You know, it keeps getting cloudy and sunny and cloudy and sunny, but there's one right here. See that? I told you they're right at your feet. I just threw up right between the two boats right there. Another big one. Oh man, what a good spot to fish. All right, come. Yo, man, that's a toad right there. Look at that thing. What a beautiful brown, dudes. Let me get him unhooked real quick. If you'd get on the motor, Chad, I'd appreciate it. A little teamwork, that's another thing the bass guys are good for. Holy smokes. Look at the size of this one right here. This one might be the biggest one of the day right there. What do you think of that, guys? Now, one thing I will say, you know, we talk about all the retrieve variables and stuff. Earlier in the day, we were having to get them on the pause, and I think it's because the fish were territorial. Yeah. And now we're in a spot where they're feeding more, wind's blowing in, and now the bait can be moving more, and it seems to still get bit, and that's the kinds of stuff you got to pay attention to over the course of the day, you know?
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
That's what separates the men from the boys, is paying attention to the retrieve details over the course of the day. Just because one retrieve worked really good for a while doesn't mean it's going to be particularly when conditions change like they did here.
Yeah, it's not going to be the cure-all.
No, definitely not.
There was a big fish out in front of this bush over there.
Yeah, that's where I caught that first one over here. There he is right there.
Got him. Oh, nice one. That's a toad, man. It's a toad.
Another big one.
That's a big fish, dude.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'll go bass fishing for trout any day.
Right.
Might be a Ranger bass boat. People ask me all the time, why would you want a bass boat? There you go. Nice job. Thanks very much. Another hog.
Look at the size of that.
Hang on to that rod if you were that. For just one quick second, we're just going to unhook him real quick right here. And then we don't have to deal with it. We'll get him out and put him back real quick here.
All right, you got him.
Oh, baby,
nice
another
fish,
big, old fat Delaney Brown. Absolutely
nice
love it. Beautiful, beautiful fish. See you, buddy. Love it. Love it.
Liking that one.
Love it. Oh, it's a nice one. Get the net, Chad, if you would. Oh, that's a nice one right there. Now we're gonna get the boat turned. That's a big old brown. Coming to the net. That's a nice one right there. We'll take that, huh?
Attaboy.
That's what we're talking about right there, guys. Now let me get control of the boat here so we don't drift in on these guys on the bank. And
let me take that way, get him on hook.
Yeah, there you go. If you'll take care of that so we don't ruin those guys. Now guys, this is the kind of trout we've been trying to catch
all day, and this is really what you have that's possible if you come out here during the spawn. We got barbless hooks, so they should come out relatively quickly and easily, and we'll get these guys returned to the water. But you know, this is straight up bass fishing for trout right here. This is the kind of stuff the kind of opportunity you have. Monstrous brown, look at this thing. I mean,
he's beautiful.
Beautiful. Is that not a nice trout, Chad?
Gorgeous, yeah.
I mean, that is a good looking trout right there. Big old fat, heavy duty brown trout. Absolutely beautiful. We'll go ahead and put him back here. See you, buddy. Now, again, on the rainbow floating jerkbait in the shallow cover in the wind. It's cold out. It was 15 degrees warmer 2 hours ago when we started this thing. But Chad, let's turn around here. I'm not sure that we're gonna get one bigger than that. So that might be where we go.
That's a nice fish.
You know, you want to come out in October, you want to get after them, think about some big baits, think about some lipless crankbaits, some jerk baits, some really traditional bass stuff, you know? I mean, if you're...
Power baits.
Yeah, all power fishing, exactly. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. It's been a fun time. We've had a great time, caught some really nice browns. It's a huge opportunity. If you can see this show, there's a safe bet that there's big browns in your area as well. No better time than the fall of the year. Whether you go to the river or you catch them in the lake like this, great time to do it. Also, special thanks to the Division of Wildlife guys for all the work they do to make sure there's plenty of them stocked. Thank you guys for putting up with my voice. Thank you for joining us in the boat. And we'll see you guys next week. A little bit so your scene changes. Oh, wah, wah. I remember the first day I went fishing. Oh man, I just got train wrecked right there. How did that fish come off? Oh man. Got him, oh. Come on.